All right, well, it's 9 p.m., so I'm going to start right now, and this is What is War Good For? A tour through the Valkyria Chronicles series. So, things we will go over in this panel. What is Valkyria Chronicles? What makes it so special? Yes, there is more than one Valkyria Chronicles game. Raise a hand. Who here knows that there's more than one game? Okay, that's actually really good. The amount of times I've had people tell me, wait, there's more than one? It happens more likely than you think. And we'll also go over why you should play the second game. Why are women with white hair glowing blue? And much more. Plus, we got a special announcement. So I guess I'll introduce myself. I am WanderingMind. I go by he, they. Been a longtime fan of the series since the very first one, way back when, and I am a member of the Valkyria Chronicles speedrunning community. Been part of it for a decade plus. I've participated in several marathons and organized a showcase. Also, I did run VC2 here at MAGFest. Who here showed up during my run? Raise your hands. Okay, fair enough. Okay, it was at 5:30 a.m., but completely understandable. But excellent run, so when you have the time, definitely check it out. But yeah, so my main specialization is with the second game, and I have also contributed to the first and third game. Someone will run Revolution. Yes, we will have to acknowledge it. And also work in 4. And this is my first ever panel. Thank you. I already feel a lot better. So let's go on. What is Valkyria Chronicles? Well, Valkyria Chronicles is a series of strategy RPGs that combine traditional turn-based action with turn-based action and third-person action. Most of the games take place in an alternate universe, World War II era Europe. And the games have been developed and published by Sega. We got 4 mainline titles, 2 spin-off games, a 26-episode TV anime series, a 2-episode OVA, and several spin-off manga. So, what makes this series so special? Not a lot of strategy RPGs really focus on this time period. Like, I can't really think of any like early 20th century. And there is a huge focus on character-driven storytelling, which really sets the game apart, especially once we get into it. And really, there is gameplay that you really don't see anywhere else. Like, I have trouble thinking of anything like the series. And really, you also have a really unique presentation with how the games come to life. Again, I will try my best to put in the words, but that's what this panel is here for. So I guess we'll go into the lore. We gotta do some background. So it is 20th century Europa. We got 2 superpowers. So over to the west, we have the Atlantic Federation. These are a loose group of democracies that band together against the Eastern European Alliance, also called the Empire, under the rule of an emperor. They both depend on Ragnite, which is a glowing blue multi-purpose substance which powers most of the technology, and its scarcity causes war to break out. And in this case, we're going to be focusing on the Second European War. So we're going to zoom in. We got the Principality of Gallia, and this is a small neutral country that relies on universal conscription to fill its military forces. It's roughly 38,000 square kilometers, so for Americans like me, it's roughly the size of the Netherlands. Fun fact, Gallia is also loosely based on the country. You see windmills, that's kind of a starting point. And it is rich in Ragnite, and because of that, it gets invaded by the Empire. Enter the Valkyr. These were a highly advanced group of people who came in from the north, and they supposedly saved Europa from the Darksome calamity. They possessed superhuman powers and abilities, like the ability to heal really quickly. And after they quote-unquote saved Europa, they all but disappeared from history, became the stuff of legends, and revered and worshipped to this day. And this is where the Valkyria come in. These are the modern-day descendants of the Valkyr, characterized by their hair that turns white, eyes that glow red, and they give off a azure blue glow when fully powered. They retain the same powers as their ancestors, and they play a significant role in all of the games, altering the very course of the story in each and every one of them. So that's where we get the Valkyria and Valkyria Chronicles. So we're going to go on to the gameplay loop. So presenting the story, each of the games have a unique way in which they tell the story and the gameplay. So in the first game, it's done through a book. In the second game, it's done through an overworld at a school. The third game's really neat, as you can see on the bottom left. So we have a war map, and we got pins, and we got reels. And as you progress through the chapter, like the blue and red lines will change, and you have like different pieces, as if you're like planning out the whole campaign. And fourth game, we have a diary. This is where you're going to enter headquarters. This is where you're going to watch the cutscenes, going to save and load, and enter battle. So we're going to get into the meat of things and really talk about what makes the gameplay so special. There are two parts to this. The first is the overhead map, and as you can see here, this is where you can review the area, your units, and the enemy units on your turn. And you can select units to directly control the blue ones, and it really makes you feel like you're planning out and carrying out an operation, especially something of a grand scale. So we select the character, and then we go right into the action, and you get to directly control your character from a third-person perspective. Like in a lot of strategy games, it's like you'll look at a map, you click, and the character will just move there. But here, you're in direct control, so you can move around, get in position, and then when you want to aim, you go in an over-the-shoulder view and fire your weapon or use any item or whatever. And then you can move around until you decide to end your action or you run out of movement. And putting these two, it's really unique. And I cannot stress that enough. And something else that really sets this game apart are the potentials. And these are abilities that activate positive or negative effects depending on certain conditions. We got two types. So we got personal potentials, which are based off character quirks and attitudes. So like right here, we have Curtis. Curtis has social anxiety. They get tense around people they're not well acquainted with, decreasing defense. I find this really relatable, okay? And then there are just a lot more like that, but for time, we're going to move on to the battle potentials. And these are earned through leveling up your classes. So like we have our engineer here, Allard, and he can throw grenades much further the more he levels up. So this is just a really small sample. So let's go on to the actual games. We're going to go with the one that started it all, Valkyria Chronicles 1. This one was released for the PlayStation 3 in 2008, which, oh my god, that was like 18 years ago. Yes, I'm going to make you all feel old, so you're all going down with me. So this one takes place during the Second European War, kind of gave you the background here. And it follows Vulcan Gunther, who is a university student who gets caught up in the war. He joins a militia, and he becomes this commander of Squad 7. And with a group of people, a bunch of volunteers, and a bunch of people from all walks of life, they fight the Empire, and they fight against all odds. So we got a ragtag militia and a mighty empire right on our doorstep. And I want to take this moment to talk about the origins, because this was really fascinating, and just seeing how it all came together. So Shuntaro Tanaka and Ryotaro Nonaka wanted to work on something back in 2003. One of them worked on Skies of Arcadia Legends, and the other worked on Nightshade, aka Kunoichi, for the PS2. And they wanted to do a war drama. It was basically them saying, let's make a war game. And they tossed around some ideas before settling on the idea of a World War II game. And this is pretty timely. You had a lot of World War II games, especially with your Medal of Honor and your Call of Duty. Also, they did mention Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers as clear inspiration. So we're going to talk about what sets the game apart. And we're going to start with the general idea. They wanted to create a game that focused on characters. And the viewpoint was that the average war game was all about tactics and fighting. And I feel like even with the series, it can get very easily lost. So it's the sort of thing where I'm here to remind people, or to teach everyone, since we're all in this together. And they thought a game based on friendship and romance might be a fresh and interesting direction. And they drew upon their experience on the Sakura Wars games, which combined romance and visual novel elements with a strategy RPG component, but took in a different direction. So, raise a hand. Who here has played any of the Sakura Wars games? Whoa, okay, I'm glad we have some people. That makes me very happy. You know what? I should be raising my hand too. Only played the fifth one, but anyway. So, a lot of the character writing and the focus on relationships really took a different direction, and the combat was going to take more of a forefront. Now we're going to get to the character designs. And Raita Hanjo became in charge of the character designs, a very low-note doujinshi artist for specific designs. He's, well, yes. I'm glad you're nudge, nudge. Yes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, so best known for his work these days on Fate Grand Order. And so these two guys, they wanted someone who had a very firm grasp of military design, but was fashionable enough and capable of bringing their own flair into the character designs. They looked at his artwork and they were like, this is our guy. And we are going to be keeping it safe for work enough for this panel. Yes, okay, yes, I know I'm a killjoy, but you can look up his more typical stuff on your spare time. I'm not doing that here, but I really want to show off some examples just to say, okay, like looking at this, especially with the one to the left, which is some designs based on Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and this is some original art right here, and it's like, I can relate, and it's like, yeah, I can totally understand why they went with him. And his artwork really carried over to the artwork that he did for the series. A lot of these were pulled from the design book for the third game. It's just really vibrant, very fashionable, very colorful, and Raita really brought a lot of things to life. And there was so much art, safe for work examples, by the way, that I could have included. And just, that was actually the most difficult part, by the way, finding stuff that was safe enough. So now we're going on to visual elements. And so the games are presented in a hand-drawn style, very much reminiscent of a watercolor painting. And the concern at the time was that the epitome of photorealistic graphics was reached with the PS3, which that was already 2 decades ago. Again, I'm making myself feel old. And also something to consider that this was the oncoming 7th generation, and Japanese games have always had a bit of a stigma, especially JRPGs, but it was particularly bad around that time, around the turn of the 2010s. And so they decided to ignore photorealism and focus on the style that they were already established themselves in. So there is one quote that I really wanted to include here, and this was from an interview. So Shuntaro Tanaka said the following: if you use realistic graphics on a realistic setting, it's doubtful that you will get the real emotional, real psychological feel of the game. You couldn't be sure if the message gets across. I felt that by distracting from the realness of the environment and the realness of the setting, the realness of the emotions and the message behind it would get across better. And something as an aside, so the interviewer brought up the Polar Express, which went with a more realistic style, and Toy Story, which is very much its own style. And also brought up Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, which, yep, that was a movie, which I have never seen, but someday I will for curiosity's sake. But anyway, so a point that was brought up was that whatever has the more personality and more character to it is the one that's going to be remembered. So like with the style, especially the hand-drawn watercolor plus anime style, that it might have been off-putting to some people. And so a really good comparison is like Pixar movies. So like when they were brought to Japan, they were seen as kiddie movies that you would just take your kids to see. And then the parents would be like, oh, these are really good. And then now whenever a new Pixar movie comes over, adults without any children will go see them. So it's like word of mouth, stuff gets spread around, and people come to accept the style. So that was always an interesting comparison that I came across. And I feel like if you do not take anything else from this panel, this quote is the driving force behind the games, if you ask me, and really something that feels more relevant than ever. And then we get to the music. So the music was done by Hitoshi Sakimoto, best known for his work for Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy Tactics, and he really brought his own flair to the series. Sakimoto wanted to express through the game a human emotional drama, that you do have the military backdrop, but at its core, it is a love story that happens to take place during a war. And the human drama, everything surrounding warfare and the fighting, the in-between, the more peaceful moments, those are present in all four games, even though they may take on different tones. So, how well did the first game do? It did receive positive reviews. It wasn't exactly a commercial success, the sort of thing that got word of mouth, but it sold well enough to gain a following. I know for me, it was basically the reason to get a PS3 because there weren't really a lot of games and really a lot of RPGs at the time. So that was a huge, huge draw for me. In 2014, it was released on Steam without much fanfare, only to become a smash hit, topping the charts and at one point outselling Assassin's Creed Unity. Woo! Oh, that makes me happy. Then was released on the PS4 in 2016, and then the Switch in 2018. And really, it was really important that this game got released on Steam because that's the reason why a lot of people have played the game, and it's so highly regarded that if it was stuck on the PS3, not a lot of people would have known about it. But, so that does mean a lot to me. And now we get to the anime. This was made around the time that the game was released. It more or less follows the first game, but takes some major creative liberties. Mainly with Alicia's characterization, comes a bit more of a tsundere, and there's an introduction of a love triangle between Welkin, Alicia, and Faldio that wasn't really present in the game. It never really saw an official release outside of Japan, which I kind of wish it did, but it's worth checking out of curiosity, and it's also worth it for Alicia's reactions. Like, you're going to see these peppered throughout my presentation. They're so good. So now we get on to the second game. The second game was released in 2010 for the PlayStation Portable. It follows Yvonne Hardens and the cadets of Lancel Royal Military Academy as they fight a rebel army from wiping out the Darksons and taking over Gallia. This is the only one that does not take place during the Second European War. So, why did I bring up the anime? So, making the game for the PSP meant that they could match the timing of the anime series, as the PS3 would have taken too long. So, for reference, it took 5 years, so from 2003 to 2008, to even come up with the first game through all the forums and all the different versions. So, they knew that the anime would attract new fans and possibly casual gamers. this was a major factor in switching the cutscenes and the overall look to a 100% anime style. So I know that was off-putting to a lot of people, and it's something that I always wondered about, but when I found this out, it all came together. And so with the new audiences that they would have gotten from the anime, they wanted to make the game accessible enough for new and casual players and have enough depth to satisfy the more hardcore players. And the want for casual gaming led to the idea of an academy setting. And not only that, they thought there was something exciting about a military academy. However, they did not have time to really visit a military academy, and it really shows because it's really a high school in all but name. Take that as you will. And also, it's really anime. Also take that as you will. No, really, I mean, but anyway. So, going from the PS3 to the PSP was a huge adjustment, working around the limitations. And so the emphasis this time is on shorter, fast-paced missions. So instead of the long, drawn-out maps that you would have had in the first game, we now have maps that are divided into smaller areas that you can jump between using camps. And the class system was overhauled, so before it was very straightforward. You'd level up, you'd go to a higher tier class, but this time, you can now switch into different classes using a branching system. And there is so much, like I would not have time to go through each and every one of them. But Yvonne can switch between the base classes. There is a story reason. And it really introduces a lot of new classes. Like there is so much flexibility. I forgot the count, but I know it's at least more than 30 classes. Like it's very easy to lose track of. So, how well did it do? It reviewed really well across all outlets. We're talking like 8s, 9s, and 9.5s. That good. Not surprisingly, didn't sell well in the West. And come to think of it, a PSP game in 2010 in the West might have been a hard sell, and the game might not have been the most appealing to Westerners, which is really a shame. And I have to keep on reminding myself that the PSP, it did have a following here, but it wasn't really that popular like it was in Japan. And not surprisingly, did a lot better there. And it was very much designed with the Japanese audience in mind. So because of the anime, they pivoted, went for a purely Japanese audience, but I'm still glad that we got the game. So this is when I get to tell you why VC2 is still worth playing. Definitely give it a chance. The amount of customization is wild. Like, you can customize your vehicle, so not only do you have a tank, you also have an APC that you can carry your units in. And you have so many different loadouts. Like I did mention the classes, you have different type of weapons and different classes. Like the possibilities are endless. Like you have a huge roster and you can mix and match. It's really easy to pick up and play, which was designed by choice. So like you can do like a mission, like 10 or 15 minutes. You could do another one, finally play the story. Or if you're like me, okay, one more mission, yet another mission, okay, one more mission, few hours go by. That's been more or less my experience. And yeah, there's really a ton of depth for those who want to go more hardcore. And yep, there's a reason why I speedrun this game. It has Zeri. I am going to save you all from my simping, but God, I love him. And most importantly, well, aside from Zeri, it makes you appreciate VC3 a lot more. So now we go on to the third game. This was released, again, for the PSP in 2011. Sadly, it was Japan only. And it did get a repackaged version later in the year with some additional DLC and a additional ending, plus some other stuff. And it follows the Nameless, which was a penal unit that was serving Gallia as a Black Ops unit during the Second European War. So it ditches the school setting and goes right back to the war. And it takes on a much darker tone, even more so than the first game. So in a lot of ways, it really feels like a reaction to the second game and very much a response. So work was done on the third game almost immediately, and you have to realize that there was a 1-year turnaround. So they sought to retain the audience that they got from the second game, while also appealing to fans of the first game. And it's presented like a story that was stricken from the official records, and that's really why the game was presented with an archival footage reel. So like whenever you start a chapter, you have the film reel effect, then would transition to full color. And going with a penal unit was a way of going back to the roots. So like you have a cast of characters who were thrown into a bad situation, being nameless, and being put on the most dangerous missions, so kind of like the Dirty Dozen. And like, you have a whole cast of characters, like you have a cook, you have a girl who likes setting things on fire, you have a battle granny, and there are just way more that I could go on about. Kind of like a band of hooligans. This was in their own words, by the way. Yep. And like here we got a huge difference in style, so it's still anime, but it's more in line with the first game, and you really see more of Raita's style really show through the screenshots, and it really shows really what the Nameless are all about. It's just, they run the gamut of emotions. Also, this game is difficult. No, really, I mean it. And to quote my friend, VC3 is a lot like VC2, except you die a lot more. It punishes you for any overstep. So, yeah, the second game was easy, you could just run past everything. I guess the first game as well. But you take way more damage this time. Like, even the scouts do heavy damage. And just play the first few missions. You're gonna find out really soon. And this is gonna go without saying, but there is no shame on playing on easy. No, really, I have to say that, but even I have to remind myself. So, reason I say this is they realized that they gained an audience of people who might not usually play games like Valkyria Chronicles. So they made an easy mode, and in their own words, this allowed them to get sadistic with normal difficulty. And especially with the second half, where you have missions where the enemy will go first, and then the post-game, which is downright cruel. So, what about the gameplay? Again, 1-year turnaround, so the game did reuse a lot of assets and a lot of the same soundtrack, but they added a whole bunch of new stuff. The class system got overhauled so that anybody can change into any class, which was very much welcomed, especially with the way that it worked in the second game. So they streamlined a lot of the classes, and the cast is a lot smaller for this reason. And the new maps are larger, more dynamic, and they really encourage the use of APCs. Like, you could use them in the second game, but in the third game, like, they really wanted you to switch things up. So, basically, everything from the second game got streamlined. It received positive reviews, and it sold well in Japan. It is worth playing. Like, the anime cutscenes are really good. Like, if you ever get the chance, the Imka versus Silvaria scene, it is a work of art. It is one of my favorite things ever. But I still recommend playing the second game before this one, so you can really appreciate all the changes that were made. It more or less gets you ready, because if you jump right into the third game, nothing but pain. Well, okay, going from the second game, well, you're gonna get a rude awakening. School Hard Knocks, what can I say? So this is when I get to talk about the fan translation. It's been out for well over a decade, very flawed with blatantly obvious faults, but again, to quote my same friend, but there are English letters on the screen. However, I have a special announcement to make. A new and updated English fan translation is in the works. Yep, Doomy Doom has been working on this since last July. There is no estimate on when a version 1.0 will happen. Like, there is so much work, but I've seen it. It already looks really promising. And I got some examples, again, courtesy of my friend Loof. So, one of the major things is that text box reduction and rewritten dialogue. So, really to make things flow more naturally, and you get to see the beautiful portraits a lot more. The text box breaking got fixed. This was a major problem with the old patch. And so text is now readjusted so it fits within the parameters, so for every single thing. So like we have some pretty obvious ones here. There are some ones that are not so much, but really, it's a huge difference. All text is now translated, even the off-disk DLC. That one is a huge thing. And here's an idea of what to expect. So like here we have the old one, very awkwardly worded. And then with the new one, large ones will cause massive damage. Watch out for large landmines. Really flows a lot better. So now we're going to go on to Valkyria Chronicles Duel, which is our first spin-off. This was released in 2012 for iOS, Android, and PC. Basically, you collect cards of characters from the third, second, and first game. You pit those against your squad once you build your deck, and then you fight them to take over their territory. The cards went really heavy on the fan service over time. Wasn't enough to save the game, and it shut down in 2015. I'm not showing them here. Again, look them up on your own spare time, just go to the wiki. It'll explain everything. And now we get to Valkyria Revolution, and this one, yes, grown. Yep, this one was released in 2017 for the PS4, Xbox One, and Vita. This is the only one that has music composed by Yasunori Mitsuda. And yes, I have to acknowledge the existence of this game. I have to do it for this panel. Maybe I'll change my mind, who knows. But anyway, so the game takes place in a different timeline from the main games. So it's more an alternate universe Europa, but more during the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution. And it follows the country of Jutland as it fights a war of independence against the Rusian Empire. You can guess the parallels. And it was envisioned to be more of an action-based RPG, kind of like you would issue commands in real time. They released a demo and they got feedback, and because of the negative feedback, they readjusted it and they made it lean more heavily towards turn-based action. So like you can hack and slash, you can move around, but you're going to see this menu a lot. And this is where you're going to use your magic, your items, your weapons, and issue commands to your other units. Not surprisingly, the game was not received well at all. Criticism was mainly leveled at the lack of character interaction and meaningful storytelling. Like, a lot of the cutscenes are characters just standing around, and it really suffers from talking heads. Like, it's really bad. And the characters, it just, with the high bar that was set by the mainline games, it falls really short. Let's just put it that way. And the gameplay was seen as repetitive and lacking the strategy seen from the mainline games. Like, you can hack and slash, and also, 2 words, rock shot. You're going to use that a lot. I mean, I guess there's some other stuff, but more or less. Now we get to the 4th game. This one was released in 2018 for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This was the first one to be released on consoles since the original, so 10-year gap. Also, the first mainline in 7 years. Once again, takes place during the Second European War, and this time it goes beyond Gallia and focuses on the Atlantic Federation. So specifically, Claude Wallace and his childhood friends who joined the Federation Army during the war and get involved in Operation Northern Cross, which is a massive offensive to push right to the imperial capital of Schwarzgrad, going across the frozen north. And really, this game is considered a full return to roots. And going back to the first game's grounded military setting while building improvements from the rest of the series was really what they were aiming for. And like with 2 and 3, very much designed with a Japanese audience in mind. But here they wanted to develop it on a global scale because they realized that they got a worldwide following, especially with the first game. And so they were thinking worldwide and really going for that overseas audience. And the story is on a much grander scale, going beyond Gallia and across the Empire. Very much based on the Eastern Front of World War II, so what would have been like to fight in and around Russia around that time? The gameplay is very similar to the first game, but with 10 years of experience, very much polished. It does introduce the Grenadier class. These characters carry around mortars and have long-distance capabilities. They're a lot of fun to use, and they are pretty useful. And then there is also the Brave system, so if a character is on the verge of death, you have two options. You can restore the command point and increase the abilities of one ally, or you can enable your fallen character to move and attack in an invincible state. So it does add a dimension of drama to the gameplay. Also, it has a dog named Ragnarok. Isn't he cute? He is a good boy. I want to pet him. And the game was reviewed well across all outlets, and especially popular perception, it was considered a true return to form. And you can actually jump into this game without playing any of the others. Like, I know a friend who got the fourth game, and I told her, you can just play it, and you can play the others later. Like, it is still a valid thing. And in June of 2020, Sega revealed that over 1 million copies have been sold worldwide on all platforms, which, that's really impressive. That is way better than I thought. So, what is the future of the series? It's hard to say. It's been 8 years since the last one came out. Wow, it's been that long. And where do we go from here? What new things would a VC5 bring to the table? We can only speculate. So, we have reached the end of the panel. I can be best found on Blue Sky at WanderingMind at bluesky.social. And coming in full circle, there's really nothing quite like the series. I can talk about the series all I can, but at the end of the day, it's the sort of thing where my words can only go so far. It can't do it full justice, and you really just have to experience the games for yourself and really give any of the games a chance. It might resonate with you like it did with me, and there's something profound you might take away from it like I did with all the games. And with that, we have reached the end of the panel. So now, I'm going to open the floor. Any questions, feel free to chat. See how much time we have. Yep.
We have a lot.
Yep.
Favorite character across all?
Zeri.
Second favorite character.
Second, Riella.
Favorite character from 4?
Favorite character from 4, Raz. I just love his personality. Yes, the sort of guy who I love, but I also want to throw into a dumpster. I just can't help but love that kind.
That's why you love him.
Yes. Yep. You.
Favorite from 1? I came in late, so I don't know if you went over. Did you ever talk about the canceled collab with Ghost Frontline?
The canceled. Sorry.
The canceled collaboration with Ghost Frontline.
I haven't heard anything about that, sadly. But yeah, you can if you can explain, that would be.
I feel like nobody really talked about it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, any other questions? Anybody? Yep, you.
We heard you from your secret favorite character from 1. Let's just round it out.
Favorite character? Sylvaria. I just really love her design, and just you gotta appreciate her devotion and loyalty, and just the fact that she's willing to put her life on the line and really has a strong sense of duty that you really only saw her in the first game, but she made such an impact, and really, she really does feel like one of the main faces of the series. Yep, you.
Favorite from Revolution.
I'll get back to you on that. Rockshot. Okay, yes, Rockshot. Yep, I love throwing rocks and doing AoE. Yep, you, in the back.
Do you think on maybe a newer game, a multiplayer component to the game would be a good idea, or do you think it's one of those years where it only solely lives as a single player?
Actually, very good question. So, the second game actually has a multiplayer component. So, I wasn't sure if I was going to have time, but now that you asked that, so the second game has a co-op mode where with ad hoc internet, you can jump into a bunch of missions and do them. And I even got the chance to do it, me and a friend, my friend Loof, and the really special thing was that me and my friend, we both knew the game inside and out, so we really got to break the game in certain ways and just have that special kind of fun. Like, I don't think we actually finished the full main game, but oh my god, it was a blast. Also, there's PvP, so you can take your loadout and go one-on-one. And let me just say, me and Loof, well, he absolutely bodied me. And there's a child character called Alias, who's a white-haired Valkyria. And, well, she destroyed me so hard in the tank, we called her Demon Rat Child. Sadly, it got removed from the third game just because they realized even in Japan, not a lot of people use that feature. I would love to see it return in some form. I don't know how it would work, but I'm very happy that they even tried it. All right? Yep, you?
So I know you mentioned that you speedrun VC2. Like, how do you manipulate the class upgrades? Like, because sometimes it's RNG on getting the requirements to like full JLI.
Well, we hope that it works, but more or less so, we only have a handful of units that we got to make sure. So Avan getting to a scout veteran, and really looking for certain missions and making sure that whatever characters we use get those credits. Zeri and Anisette are the other two. And as long as they're a trooper veteran by the end of July, that's what matters. Like, if Zeri or Anisette can become a commando, that's great, but not really required. So it's just more or less how the route works in. Most of the time, it really falls into place, but sometimes it doesn't. The game is really cruel with whatever randomness it throws my way. Yep, you?
How long did it take for you to speedrun Valkyria Chronicles 2?
Oh my god, I've been routing it more or less for, I've been running it for more or less for a decade plus, but I remember back in 2014, like, I saw someone stream the game and speedrun it, and I thought, hey, I could do better, and it took me an entire summer to really work on it before I did my first run. I would go back to the drawing board and spend hundreds and hundreds of hours just going through the route and really seeing where things come together. Do another run, go back and forth, and many years later, Doomy Doom actually came up with a new route, and I'm like, time to return to the game.
But I mean, how long did it take you?
Oh, how long? How long? It took me countless hours. Like, it took me months. Yeah, I mean, actually, it took me a month to do my first run, but I mean, like, overall, it was more I was learning with each run, I guess, is more what I'm getting at. So, it's a months-long ongoing process. Yep.
I know you said there weren't many games similar, but if you had to really stretch and pick out a catalog after some of them were finished, maybe 4, maybe 5 games, what would you recommend?
What would I recommend? Ooh, I would recommend the Soccer Wars games so you can see where a lot of the ideas came from and the fact that you had the main staff that worked on it. And actually, that's a really good question that you brought up. So, there was a game that Julian Gollop worked on, the father of the XCOM series. He was actually working on a 3D reboot of the first game. Sadly, it got canceled back in like 2000 or so. However, he did come across Valkyria Chronicles, and he said that it was eerily similar to the type of gameplay he was going for. But he really appreciated what they were doing, and really the fact that they were able to get a game out like that. So, it's funny because it's like, oh, it's anime XCOM. It's not really. Turns out it kind of is. All right, you?
Who's your least favorite character?
Cosette from VC2. I don't know, she just doesn't really click with me. I tried my best to like her, but it's like, Avan is like a lovable idiot, and especially with the scene in June, where, do I even want to say, you know what, I'll just say it. So, Cosette has blood trauma and like has some bad flashbacks, and she's supposed to heal everyone, and Avan is like, here, I can encourage you. He shoots himself in the stomach, so it's like, if you can heal me, you can heal everyone else. I wish I was making this up, and I think the main guy or one of the producers or whatever didn't want it, but the other staff members overruled him, and that's why it's in the game. Any other questions? Or actually, you.
For speedrunning, what do you see as like the coolest trick that you use?
Oh, the coolest trick. So I think there's a tie. So the one that I do constantly is called stutter stepping. So there are V2 units, which are these artificially powered Valkyria units, and the thing is, they hit really hard, but like they're also really slow to fire. And so you aim, the enemy will stop firing. You can use that to your advantage. So certain weapons, certain items aim a lot faster. So you get a bit of a rhythm going, and you can just run past them. Absolutely breaks the game. And the other one, so in the second to last mission, there are 3 heat sinks that you're supposed to destroy. But if you angle your tank right, you can shoot through the fence and hit it from the other side. I call it the Wander Shot, named after yours truly. And it skips about a minute and a half worth of stuff. So if you do check out the run, you'll see for yourself. But those are 2 of my favorites. Yep.
Speaking of speedrunning, like how long is a run for speedrunning?
Okay, so the run is roughly 3 hours, 20 minutes by now. So, yeah, I know the current record is 3 hours, 22 minutes. Ideally, I can push it down to a 3:17. It's just a matter of sitting down, getting that practice, and a bit of good luck. It is very luck dependent. I know you raised your hand.
How glitch heavy are they?
What I say?
How glitch heavy are they?
Glitch heavy, they surprisingly aren't really all that glitch heavy. It's really working within the parameters of what the game gives you. So more or less it's kind of a glitchless thing, and just seeing how things got programmed and just... Actually, you know what? There's another one. We only get to use it once. So certain weapons have certain ranges, and then it'll drop off. You'll just take 1 damage. We can use that to our advantage. So like there is one mission where there's a heavy gunner that's firing at me. It can kill me pretty easily, but I can wait, just take 1 damage, run past. And so we use a thing called edge intercept. But we take advantage of the weapon drop off and then run past the enemy. I know in Japanese it's called intercept 1, but it's a really neat thing that I also know is in the 3rd game. But that's a really neat thing. Yep. Anybody else? Well, I guess that about does it.